Welcome to the Public Sector Technology Exchange. I'm your host, James Baker. It's my privilege today to have one of the great leaders in government with us, Mike Cave. Mike, thank you so much for coming. Before we begin our interview, I'd like to share with our audience a quick snapshot about Mike Cave and his service here in the state of California. Mike currently works for the California Environmental Protection Agency's Department of Toxic Substances Control. He is the department's network infrastructure manager and has been largely focused on ensuring that the department accomplishes the infrastructure consolidation objectives in Assembly Bill 2408, which will improve the state's information technology efficiency, effectiveness, agility, security, and reliability, while reducing costs and energy usage. Mike is serving as the project manager on the California Email Service Migration Project, as well as providing project oversight for the California Government Enterprise Network Migration Project. Mike has also worked at Cal EPA's Air Resources Board and has held both technical and managerial positions at the California Department of Transportation. Mike, thank you again for joining us.
No problem.
The mission of the Department of Toxic Substances Control is to provide the highest level of safety and to protect the public health and the environment from toxic harm. Your agency is in a unique position where you interact with citizens' needs and requirements on a daily basis. Could you share with our audience how your infrastructure group supports DTSC's mission?
Sure. I'll start with kind of defining what infrastructure services are. It's basically the functions, the tasks, and the activities associated with keeping the lights on.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about it in its most basic level, it's about keeping the lights on. It's people's personal computers, making sure that they can access a highly reliable and available network. And as you know, when you're using a computer, it has problems, so you need service staff available to respond if something goes wrong with the computer to keep them working.
And we're going to talk about in a moment. I want to talk a little bit about Assembly Bill 2408, but this is a very, the Cal EPA headquarters is a very unique location. We're going to talk about that in a moment because I know you all are truly involved in sharing and saving and trying to be as efficient as you can. But for our audience that's outside the Sacramento area, could you comment on what Assembly Bill 2408 is? We also have a link on the website. If you're interested in reading more detail about this, you can click on it and you'll come right to a very long listing about the bill. Mike, share with our audience just in a nutshell what 2408 is about.
Well, 2408 is about IT consolidation. So if you've been following state government over the last few years, you'll know that it's very complex, it's costly in a lot of areas, and it's difficult to manage and even more difficult to secure. So what AB 2408 does is it sets out a framework for change by consolidating various components of the state's IT infrastructure. It starts out in the area of networking with the California Government Enterprise Network. That's one state enterprise network. It also tackles email. As you know, we have several different email systems out there,
right,
and it strives to consolidate into one and get the efficiencies and cost savings that will be born from that long term. Also looks at email from a security perspective with eHub, which is the state's email security gateway. And there are most state agencies participating in that, and they are on that. And also looks at energy usage, and there's a couple of ways that it's tackling energy usage. The first is at the desktop level. So you have PC power management expectations built into AB 2408, and also at the data center facilities level. So you've got a directive to better use the server rooms in the state, more use of data centers, consolidation using server virtualization. Those are the highlights of AB 2408, and many of the departments are making substantial progress towards accomplishing all of those objectives.
Thanks, Mike. And I think many of you around the country, it's not just germane to the state of California. There are many going green bills, but the bottom line is that state government, with shrinking budgets, people retiring, perhaps a reduction in workforce, are being asked to be more effective and utilize the energy consumption in a different way. Now, what's unique to Mike and his team, we're actually sitting here today in the Joe Cerna Cal EPA building. And this is a very unique organization. You have multiple boards, department, and offices all here in one location. Talk a little bit about, to me, how you all work and share essentially under the same umbrella down here.
Sure. The headquarters, just want to clarify, is in the Joe Cerna Cal EPA building. There are several boards, departments, and offices that have a regional office presence, so they're throughout California.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you could say they're closest to some of the environmental issues.
Mm-hmm.
But what is special about the working in the Cal EPA building is you've got all the IT resources on one floor. We all share a computer room, and from a support perspective, it is very nice to have ready access to those resources. No matter what department you work for, board or office, it's just when you have a problem,
Mm-hmm.
you take it as far as you possibly can, and you have these resources that are available that share a common environmental mission that you could bounce things off of to strengthen your solution or to modify your solution, and it's right there. You don't necessarily have to pick up a phone or float an email. These resources are right here, so it makes it very conducive to collaborating on IT initiatives.
What are some areas that you all are sharing internally? Printer services. What are, as you've begun internally, dealing with AB24, what are some of the areas that you could share with us?
The biggest one is the network.
Okay.
The building's network. It's called the Cal EPA network. It has several different layers.
Mm-hmm.
We share many of these because we share floors in some areas,
mm-hmm.
but we share that common infrastructure, and we all contribute resources to support it. And we also share an internet feed. When we did the cost optimization form,
mm-hmm.
I think I mentioned that in that one, and that is something that was put in place in the last few years, and there were definitely efficiencies from doing that. But just the skill sets, being able to share those skill sets too, based on the nature of the initiatives. For example, AB 2408, we're all coming together to brainstorm how to accomplish those objectives collectively.
Okay. Mike, during your time here as in your role as infrastructure director for this, what is some of the accomplishments that your team is most proud of that you've worked together? And I think in the spirit of reducing costs, sharing infrastructure, what would you say have been some of the big victories here?
Okay, the biggest one that I'm most proud of is server virtualization. It's
mm-hmm.
not just the fact that we did it. Everybody's doing it now. It's when we did it. We did it early on. We were an early adopter,
mm-hmm.
and I think the primary driver for it was the environmental hook. We have a calling as an environmental protection
right.
agency. We have to always be looking at reducing our environmental footprint, and servers was just a logical place to start.
What did you find with that? Because I know there's a lot of different statistics out there in the market, 10 to 1, 8 to 1, but generally when you begin doing that, you're able to...
Yeah. What we found was a lot of the servers that we had were barely breaking a sweat, so we had someone come in and do an assessment,
mm-hmm.
and we got the makings of a virtual server infrastructure started in
mm-hmm.
dtsc, and we actually did more than the recommended model. I think way back then, in late 2007, it was about 8 virtual servers per host. We were like 25. We were really aggressive with it, but again, we had that calling, and we took some risks, but we've since modified the infrastructure, made it more conducive to sharing with potentially other departments, boards, and offices in Cal EPA. But that's what I'm most proud of, because we realized so many benefits by doing it. I mean, we were just powering off servers left and right, reducing floor space in the computer room. It was special, and my role was kind of a farmer in a way. I just tilled the soil, planted the seed, let the staff own the idea, walked away, and let them implement. And it worked out beautifully, and that's just...
Well, I can imagine the savings must have been, outstanding for you all.
Yeah, the only servers that we ended up buying in the next few years were virtual server hosts. We weren't buying servers anymore. We were out of that business. The old model was have a new service you need to bring online, buy
mm-hmm.
a server, and we just weren't doing that. So our infrastructure costs were being augmented, we were spending money on different things, and the server costs weren't as big of a outlier in our total spend each fiscal year.